Welcome to another episode of Millennial Investing Explained. Here's today's question. What actions can someone take? And this is I see this very often is, what if somebody wants to start their own business and they want to branch out on their own, they have a good idea and they want to pursue it, but they try to get help on social media or they talk to their friends and family about it and all they get is rejection and criticism. What are the actions that somebody can take to actually get over that?
There's one little piece that I think sets people apart. Every single successful person, all of them, in the area of life that they were successful in, had one thing in common. All of them. And the one thing in common that they had is that the thing they were up to was bigger than anything. And that they made giant leaps in those areas, even when life presented them with overwhelming evidence to the contrary. It all comes down to this ever-growing relationship to yourself, that what you say is more important than how you feel. Most people don't keep promises to themselves. They'll maybe keep them to other people, but they don't relate to the promises that they make to themselves as being important. They're like, well, I can just forget that now because, it's raining. So I said I was going to run every day, but it's raining. So you don't realize the kind of gumminess that starts to show up. Most people don't make bold promises and bold commitments. They just know. They're like, they've had too many times when they just never do it. We are addicted to how we feel. I'm not getting up because I feel tired. But you could get up and feel tired. So most people just succumb to their body. They succumb to their confusion. They succumb to other people's opinions. And the people who are the high operators in this life, in the areas where they operate at a high level, you'll see their word, that is what falls out their mouth, is more powerful than anything else. And by the way, I should add, if your listeners spent one day keeping every promise, one day doing everything that they know they should do, and I mean everything that you should do it for a day. That's the way I need to be every day. If I was that way every day, my life would be unrecognizable. Like I said to you at the start of this, I'm not up against anything. I'm not up against society. I'm not up against media. I'm only up against myself. People tell me what can be done. I'm either going to listen to that or I'm going to go beyond that. People tell me what can't be done. I'm either going to listen to that or I'm going to burrow in and find a way. But ultimately, it's always going to come back to me.
I can relate to that so much. There's been times where I set my alarm and I hit snooze and I go back to bed and I don't get up. And I notice every time I do that, it makes the next day harder and then the next day harder and the next day harder. But that one time that I do get up early or I get on time for my alarm clock, it starts to build on itself. And then the next day and the next day, and then it starts to become easier.
Right. I mean, imagine you broke your word to other people as much as you do to yourself. You'd be the kind of person that you wouldn't hang out with.
I don't want to say easy, but is there an easy way to get better at this?
Yeah, there is an easy way. You got to start relating to it like it's a muscle, like you're going to the gym or something. And I call it my integrity muscle. It's like I'm going to start living my life like my words matter. I make promises to myself. I don't mess with them. Some people hear what I'm saying and they're like, oh yeah, that's right, Gary, that's a good idea. I should be careful what I promise in future, right? No, I'm not saying that either. I'm saying, look, make some bold promises. Get out beyond yourself and then hold yourself to them. Most people in this world of ours, they're struggling to make a living. They're struggling, to make, $300 a week. And that's a hard life. And all of their thoughts and all their attention and all their skills are all focused on solving that $300 a week problem. So every waking moment, you have the problems on your mind that $300 a week would give you. And for the most part, you'll find you'll just about solve it. And then you might start expanding a little bit, like, well, how do I get a promotion and get up to $380 a week? Because that would be good. And so you give your life and your thoughts to solving that problem. And then after a few years at 380, you're like, I need to make a break here for something. I think I could make 600 a week if I got a job doing dit, and you give your life to that. What if your problem is $2,000 a week and you had to solve it this week? Well, you had to just solve that this week. Like that was, and that's a big chunk of money for most people, like a big, some people don't make that in a month. But what if like your every waking hour was to producing that? How would you do it? And the first thing you'll notice is all the shit that you already know that makes no difference. You'd have to start engaging with a different kind of thinking. You'd actually have to invite a different set of problems into your life, like the $2,000 a week problem, which is a big freaking problem if you're only making 300. Most people's answer to that, by the way, is do more of what I'm currently doing, or some fantasy. Going to start renting out condos. Dude, you got $10 in the bank, right? So it's always like one end of this. You're like, I'll work a bunch of overtime and maybe get another job, which is more of what I'm doing, or some fantasy. Not like, no, I got to put myself in the place where, or in the places where $2,000 a week is what people do.
There's so many things in there that you just said that I absolutely love. One of my favorite things is when you talked about keeping the promises to yourself like you would to somebody else. And that's this whole time I've been thinking about that, and it's so true that if you treated other people like you do yourself in terms of promises, you wouldn't want to be around yourself.
You'd be like, I'm not hanging out with that guy. He never does anything that he says he's going to do. He like says this and he does something else.
That's really interesting. And I think if millennial investors who are, still early in life, if they can learn that now and apply that now, the rest of their life is going to be completely different than the trajectory that they're on now.
This is a tough time to be a young person, right? But for different reasons than it was to be a young person in the 40s or the 50s or the 60s or the 70s or the 80s. And they all had their own complexities for being a young person, for being somebody who's at the beginning part of your adult life. It's very challenging. These are very challenging times, but again, not for the same reasons as everybody else. But I would say to people, I have 3 young sons. My oldest is 14. My youngest, he's actually 5 today. One thing I want to instill in my kids is that, first of all, like that they have a big heart. They have a lot of compassion for other people, okay? And that's important to me, that my children are compassionate, maybe even more compassionate than most people are. But it's also important for my children to realize that the cavalry ain't coming. Nobody's coming to save you. You're not going to get the breaks. Luck's not going to come your way. If you want to make great things happen in your life, it requires you to be great. It requires you to do great things, to be what I consider to be an extraordinary human being. That is somebody who produces extraordinary results. You have to first embrace your own ordinariness. What makes extraordinary people truly extraordinary isn't some character trait. It's that they're ordinary people doing extraordinary things. That's what makes them extraordinary. They first embrace their own humanity. And I guess that's what I want a lot of people to get. You're the one. The stuff that you complain about, or you want change, that you want to be different, it's you. That's why you're having the thoughts about it. And I know we often look, on television and radio, and we look to others to step up, but it's on you. Because it can be challenging presenting people with something that they don't want to hear. But then I always come back to the same thing. But that's what I'm here for. Like, I can't back off that. I'm here to give people something that wakes them up to their potential, get out into life. And I know it's not always easy, and I know it might be easier for some people rather than others, and that's just how it goes.
And if it's harder for you, that means the upside is just going to be that much greater.
Right. And even if it is harder for you, so what? So what? I mean, if I look at my own childhood and, how that went, and growing up in Scotland and the neighborhood that I was raised in, and it was tough, man. And a lot of kids just never managed to break out of it. And that I did doesn't make me special. And it's kind of sad that some people might think that it does, because there's nothing special over here. I'm as ordinary as the next human being. In fact, I might just be an example of what's possible for an ordinary human being. And that's what I want all people to get. Like, you have a tremendous capacity for life if you finally took yourself on, you might surprise even you.
That's all for this episode of Millennial Investing Explained. Be sure to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, or subscribe to our YouTube channel to get even more free content.